Job Hunting
101.
providing you with the tools you need in your job search. Job Hunting
101.
Hello, I'm Dave Robinson, Business Services Lead Recruiter for the Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. Welcome to the Job Hunting 101 series. Today our topic is doing your homework, how to prepare for your interview. I'm joined here with two guests, Ellen Donegan with TAW and Angela Renfo with Pinpoint Personnel. These two professionals work with candidates every day on jobs, and we are going to discuss today some pointers for you as you prepare for your interview. As you start your job search and find positions that you're interested in, meeting with a recruiter like Ellen or Angela is really a very important step in the process. So let's start off with some tips for the interviewer or for the candidates that are coming in for interviews. Please let me know what you guys think about how you want a candidate to prepare for a particular position before they come in to sit down with you and talk about a job. Ellen?
Okay, well, one of the first things that I would recommend is to prepare and make sure that you bring a resume with you, of course, and make sure that you have all your documentation prepared if you have anything. But one of the first things you need to do to prepare, though, is to do research on the company. You can do that in several ways. Of course, going to their website is probably the best and first thing you should do. One of the things that's important for my company is to make sure that somebody knows what we do and how we do it. And that will gain you a lot of points because it shows that you have genuine interest in the company you're working for. I would look on the website to see, get some information, maybe see who the person is you're going to be interviewing with besides the recruiter, the job unit or the business unit, I should say, of who you're going to be working with. Find out some of the financials of the company, find out what they do, again, where they're located, and just try to memorize as much as you can about the company itself.
Great. Now, Angela, you see a diverse number of candidates being with a personnel agency. Give us some pointers for people coming to you for work.
Well, one of the things that we see quite often is they have very little experience. We staff bakeries across the country as our primary clients. So that includes people who actually package products to the engineers who make the whole lines work. A lot of times we will get new employees or candidates to come in, and they will be poorly dressed. They will have no idea what it takes to process food. They'll come in with fingernails or false eyelashes, those types of things. When you're working around, for us, food products, doing your research before time, talking to people who've worked in plants similar to the ones that you're looking to get into is essential, because if you come in to me as an interviewer and you have all of these things, which we call GMPs, that are inappropriate, we note that on the application. We note that the person really has no idea what it's going to take when they come in the door, and are they willing to remove their nails? Are they willing to take the false eyelashes off? Things of that nature. So talking to other people that have worked in the industry that you're looking to get into is really helpful for the candidate.
So what does GMP mean?
It's good manufacturing practices. So things like hairnets and sanitation and aprons and gloves, things of those nature that we teach you on the job, but having an idea, just a general sense of, okay, I'm going to have to wear a hairnet. Is extremely long hair or big dreads, is that appropriate for this type of employment? Usually not, because to be honest, it doesn't fit in a hairnet. So things of that nature is really what the employees could do just by talking to another employer or another employee who's worked in that type of industry. It goes a long ways when they come in our door.
Let's talk about the internet for a second, utilizing search engines like Google for research. Is that something that you view as something useful for people to do prior to the interview?
Oh, most definitely. If I'm looking for a job, I think I need to do the research on the company to make sure that, are they in bankruptcy? Are they having any financial problems or issues, layoffs, and if so, where, and if it's going to affect me. I don't think I would feel comfortable working for a company that, financially may be closing or I might get laid off. So yes, you can look on Google. There's a lot of different things. LinkedIn is a great resource, or even Facebook or YouTube. There's a lot of companies that do have videos or information on various resources. I would also probably look at maybe the Wall Street Journal or the Business Journal here in Tampa to get some more information and see what I could find out about the company before I, and get the statistics. The other thing is if they've had some acquisitions, or if they've, hit some big milestone in sales, I would want to know that and bring it up and say, in the interview, that's awesome. I just see you got this big contract. That must be very exciting for you. And it does go a long way.
Excellent, thank you. So Angela, now that the person has done their research and they understand kind of what they're getting into from a job perspective, what other types of questions would you expect an interviewer to have prepared before, while they're meeting with you for an interview?
One of the first questions we always ask is, how did you hear about us? Because as a staffing agency and locally in Florida, we just have a couple clients, but so we're new to Florida, and so we're not known. We're not a huge staffing company like some of the others. So we always want to know, did you hear about us through word of mouth? Did your grandma tell us? Did you hear about us through Workforce Alliance? Those are things we'd like to know. Also, understanding. We want to understand why they're at our doorstep, because packaging products isn't for everyone. And again, that's the majority of what we hire is processors and packagers. The pay isn't phenomenal, and the labor is intensive. So we always want to know, is this something that's really interesting to them? Is this their ideal working situation? I did an interview this morning, in fact, and the lady had done processing and packaging her entire career. And I asked her, I was like, why do you like that? And she said to me, I love that when I'm done with the day, I can see what we accomplished. I feel like that I've done something to be productive. I asked her what else she didn't like about processing, because like I said, it is very labor intensive. And she mentioned to me that just standing on your feet for 12 hours a day can get tiresome. But I appreciated that she recognized that that's a hurdle that our employees have to overcome is some of the physical things that go along with the job. So just understanding what the job takes, doing that research, again, ahead of time, doing the research of what physical requirements, mental requirements. Another thing is when somebody comes in with a resume that's tailored for customer service, for instance, and they're at my doorstep asking to be a processor, we always ask, why are you here? Because if you like customer service and like talking to people, that this may not be a good fit for you. So understanding that it's a completely different world, again, that can all be done through research prior to coming into the interview.
And now, Ellen, your perspective is a little bit different,
Yes.
because you're a multinational corporation. What do you want the candidates to be prepared for when they come in to see you?
Well, besides, as we've mentioned before, the subject of what the company does. Our company is very specific in what we do. We hire a lot of engineers, generator technicians, nuclear technicians. We do a very specialized type of work. So there's a lot of different things. The technical part is very important for us, along with the personality and so forth, as Angela mentioned. What do you like about doing the job that you're doing? Some of the typical questions we find, or I see for interviews is, talk about what is your strengths? What is your biggest asset that you would bring to a company? You definitely want to say, well, I bring X amount of years, I've been able to help production this amount, or anything that you've won awards, or anything that has to do with your education and training. Weaknesses, people typically will ask that. There's a lot of questions that a lot of interviewers will ask, and if you're wondering what the typical questions are besides strengths, is a weakness. If you have a weakness, you want to make it into a positive. You could say, well, sometimes I really, fit so much in the day that I don't take time to, do a break or something that you turn the negative into a positive. You want to make sure that, for us, it's a cultural fit too. We want to make sure that the person is a good fit for TAW. And that's important because our employees are our biggest asset, as any other company should feel that way. And so we want to make sure that, they're the right fit for our customers, that they're going to, fit in with us. And so that's another thing. You want to make sure that, you respond truthfully, that you're yourself. Interviewers, especially if you're a seasoned interviewer, you can tell if somebody's giving you a line. And trying to steer off from a question, you need to be honest as you can be when answering questions. The other thing is you don't have to answer things that are personal. If somebody's asking, well, if you're married or divorced or single, those are no-nos. You don't need to answer those. But a lot of it is your strengths, your weaknesses, what do you bring to the table? They want to see what you can do in order to, and that's what we look at, how are you going to be an asset to TAW, not just for yourself, but that you're for the company.
Excellent. And Angela, a similar question then, in the interview questions that you have for candidates, how do you structure those questions? What do you want to ask the individual that helps you best make a hiring decision?
Some of the questions that we ask are very generic and kind of open-ended. How do you learn quickly? How are you at learning new tasks? Because we don't expect these people to come in with a ton of experience, unlike what you hire for. We are expecting a very diverse crowd, and we want to know how quickly they learn. And we can tell, do they have a GED or do they have a high school diploma? That tells me sometimes about, will they stick with it? Will they, even if it's difficult, will they stick with it? If they tell me, well, I'm not great at paperwork, to me that's completely honest, and we appreciate it. Okay, so writing is not their biggest strength. So we ask, do you read well, both in English and Spanish? Because again, we hire a diverse crew. We also ask, do you have your own transportation? Again, we hire a totally different crew than you do. And one of the things I look at is that, yes, I have my own transportation. When we take copies of their IDs for the I-9s and for the forms that we have to fill out, if they don't give me a driver's license, well, now I'm a little concerned. You have your own transportation, but you're driving without a license. So things, again, you had mentioned it a couple times, being completely honest in the interview, no matter what the skill level the interview is for, is extremely important. Tell the interviewer the truth. I get rides from my mom is an okay, acceptable answer when you are coming in as a entry-level processing position. We don't expect you. We would love to get you to where you have your own transportation. We'd love you to work out to that point. So just again, complete honesty. And you had mentioned another thing that I want to touch on, staying away from a lot of that personal information. Oftentimes we don't ask those questions. They're no-nos for interviewers too. We're not supposed to ask if you're married or single or how long have you been in the area. But a lot of times that's offered by the interviewee. Staying away from personal, items as my baby daddy, that comes up often. My husband, the father of my children, we don't necessarily care. Again, what can you do as a candidate to help the company? That's what we are looking for. And all the questions that we ask, again, are structured to figure that out. Can you learn what we do? Will you stick with it? And is it the atmosphere? Is it something that you're looking for? Because an engineer would not do well in a processing plant typically. They need a little more structure than that. So
right, and all I was going to touch on to Angela, when you're doing interviews, I already have interview questions that I'm going to be asking. So I'll ask somebody pertinent questions about their job experience, but to Angela's point, you may get behavioral questions, situational questions like, what would you do in this circumstance? What are the statistics of, if you're going to be at a higher under position, that you may want to give statistics on, things that are pertinent to the position itself. So it is important to be prepared for a lot of different questions, because you don't know what people are going to be typically asking you, and it's a good idea to prepare. And another way to prepare too is to practice. You can look online and see, interview questions, or the most popular interview questions. You need to be prepared for that, prepared for your own honest answers. And it's always a good idea to maybe practice with a family member or someone who's going to be honest with you, and practice how you're going to sit, how you're going to present yourself, all of that, because from start to finish, when you come into the room, shaking hands, making eye contact, of course, is very important. Your body language, there's just so much to it that it's important to be prepared from start to finish.
A good rule set. Both of you mentioned, how important it is for candidates when they come in to be honest with you, to be able to talk about their past experiences, their strengths, and their weaknesses. As you develop those interview questions, what kind of things do you look for people, if you have a question that you want answered regarding background, for example, what kind of answers are you looking for?
Well, typically it's I know it's on our application, I'm sure it's on yours as well, about have you been convicted of a felony? And yours may be, I believe yours is a little bit different, but we asked, have you been convicted of a felony? We ask that because we do run a background check. So we are going to find out the answer no matter how you answer it. That doesn't exclude you from working for our company. If you lie to us, even if it was I think there's a felony in Florida that if you're caught driving on a suspended license multiple times, it's considered a felony here. I've had people answer that as no, they have not been convicted of a felony. Then we do the background check. Well, already I've excluded them because they cannot be honest during an interview. So always be completely honest. One of the best things I've ever seen on applications is I will get a yes, I get the year, will explain during interview. That to me is a great answer, because we're going to find out and we're going to talk about it because it's come up. But then they are asking for the interview anyways. The applicant's asking. They're being a little aggressive, but not overly aggressive. But we appreciate that they want a chance to explain themselves rather than just lie to us. So.
Well, I was just going to touch on that. Besides the convictions, I know my company, we look at somebody's application, and if they disclose that they had something on there, it does not, as Angela was saying, it's not going to bar them from employment. We look at the situation, how long ago, and you look at the patterns. And then we also question the person and ask them, is it theirs? Because there are times there are mistakes or people with the same names that come up, and we expect them to be honest. And then we make a decision from there. To touch on not just that, but education. We've actually had it where I had a person that we barred them from employment, not because they didn't have a high school degree, high school diploma in a sales position as an outside salesperson. We denied them employment because they lied to us on the application. So from there, if you're not going to be truthful to us in the beginning, then it's, you've already breached that already. And, to make sure that you put things on the application that are honest, like your references. The other thing I would definitely recommend, if you put personal references on it, that you contact those references to make sure that they know they're getting contacted and that they're going to give you a good reference, because sometimes people put references on there, you call them, they haven't heard from you in 13 years. I've actually had that happen. Oh, they're still around? I haven't heard from them. So that kind of is like, okay, that's another 101. You make sure that your references are current. They know that they're going to get calls. And also to make sure that if you're going to use them as a reference and you're currently working with them, it's somebody you can trust. I really wouldn't recommend a current employee unless you really feel comfortable with that person. If they, layoffs are coming up or something, that everybody's under the understanding that everybody's looking. So you do need to be totally honest with that. And the other thing is to prepare, make sure that you have your addresses, your dates correctly put on the application and on your resume, all of that, because we will find out. Most companies do background checks now, and they will find out things. And it doesn't mean that there's like a slight discrepancy that you'll be barred, but it's always a good idea to be completely honest on what you're putting on there, because it is a legal document. That's what people don't realize. Your resume is not a legal document, but the application is.
And then to expand on that, as candidates come in, and let's say they have gaps in employment, let's say you've been out of work for a while, how would you best recommend that candidates address those in a resume or in the application process?
Well, you can put on there, and I've seen people do it, and I think it's great, especially if you've been in a situation where you're in an industry like construction or an industry that we all know that's been very hit hard in the economy, and it's like, gosh, I've been at this job a year or two, but it's not you. It's like the company closed down, it was bought out, it moved. You can put a little tagline, of the company, how long you were there, your position, and then put maybe in an italicized that company closed down due to the economy, or that they moved away or something. And that would be very helpful, because unfortunately, this is the times that we're living in. Some people have a true understanding of what's going on, but some other people won't. So it's a good idea to explain a little bit beforehand, and hopefully they'll focus on what you can bring and not that you've been at 2 or 3 jobs in the last 4 or 5 years.
But again, I take it from what you've said that honesty is the best policy.
Again.
And to address it in an honest way is the best way to present yourself.
Exactly.
With regard to skill sets and how you describe yourself during the interview process, what are the best pointers that you would give to a candidate about how they describe their skill sets for positions that you have open?
Again, staying away from personal things, with children or whatnot, staying away from those types of things, or really emphasizing the skills that apply to the job. That's probably what I see the most often is they'll come in with a skill set that has really nothing to do with what we're looking for. Again, for instance, they'll come in with they've worked at the state fairs, they've done volunteer work with the SBA or whatever it's called. They will come in with those types of experiences, but again, not highlight how does that apply to what we're looking for. One of the best candidates I've ever interviewed, when it came to that entry-level position, she had just volunteer work. And so I asked her why she was at our doorstep. That's usually one of the questions I really enjoy hearing, is why they're at our doorstep. And she said, well, besides just being here for a paycheck, I really want to find something that I can stick with. And with volunteer work, it's not steady. I really appreciated that, because again, volunteer work, she wasn't being paid, but she really, it was intermittent. She wasn't really keeping herself busy. She came in and told me that she wanted to stick with something while she finished up her college degree. She still works for me to this day. So I really appreciate when they emphasize, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, again, with entry-level positions, you don't have to have the skill set coming in, but you've done something that applies and that does make an employer feel good about giving you the position. So if you've been a stay-at-home mom, how does that apply to packaging cookies? Your attention to detail, you've worked long hours, things like that. You can emphasize those skills, and you've obviously stuck with it because you just can't get rid of the kids at the moment. Emphasize those things when you come into an interview. Always try to, again, going back to research, knowing what you're applying for, look at your resume, look at your application, and then figure out how those skills, what you developed at those other positions, how that applies to what you're interviewing for.
Well, I would also recommend looking at the ad that's been placed or the job description if it's online or where you found it, and you can see, skills and experience. Well, this is what they're looking for. I bring 10 years of such and such to the table. I've been able to reduce costs by 30%. I went ahead and really, went and got my certification in whatever field that you're in because I really enjoy what I do. You can also expand on, okay, I was in this position, but I also wanted to expand my skill set, so I would go to my manager and say, can I help you with this? Or can I, learn how to do that? An eagerness to learn, somebody that shows that, the skill sets that I have is what you're looking for, and it's not always the tangibles. It may be the intangible personalities. A lot of that has to do with what an employer will look at, because a willingness to learn, to grow. What do you want to do? And it's okay if you want to be in a certain position if that's what you're good at. It's not everybody wants to be a manager or supervisor, and that's okay. Then you kind of segue into that and say, this is what I can bring to you and why I like to do this.
So it's really let's talk about attitude. You touched on that. So in the interview, when the candidate comes in, it works better for you, I would take it, if the person has a good attitude.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And you don't want to bring the negatives, when you say, well, why were you, if you left a job because you really had an issue with the supervisor, you don't want to be, well, that supervisor, I just really couldn't, tolerate him or her. And the other thing I always tell people to stay away with on the application, why did you leave? Personal reason. Well, I asked somebody that one time, and she said, well, it was a school job. I was going off to college, so I went ahead and put that on there. I said, but the thing is, the wording makes it look like you had a personal issue that, it was personal. Well, it's a legitimate reason you were going back to college. You need to be very specifically. Don't be negative. An attitude of positiveness is say, well, I found that it wasn't what I was really wanting to do, or to put a spin on it. I wanted to grow. I didn't really have the opportunity. Those are valid reasons why to leave a job. And again, you want to be truthful, but you don't want to be so truthful that it looks like that maybe you have an attitude problem or you don't get along well with other people.
And that negativity can start first thing in the morning when you're preparing for your interview. If you wake up late, if you don't have a clue what you're going to wear and what you wanted to wear is dirty, things like that can start your day off bad, and that shows in an interview. People come in oftentimes just slightly stressed. They're late. We do interviews at a certain time every day, and they're late to that, or they're running 15 minutes right before we stop doing it. You can sense that stress, or we can sense that stress before they even, as they're walking in the door. Calling ahead or Googling ahead to make sure you know where the location is at. Those are things that can help calm your nerves and help calm, help prepare you for this interview. Those are some of the pre-work that has to go in if you really want the job.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for the Job Hunting 101 series, Doing Your Homework, Preparing for Your Interview. I'd like to thank our guests, Ellen at TAW and Angela from Pinpoint Personnel. Thank you.
The Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance and WorkNet Pinellas offer workforce solutions designed to improve your business.
I've really valued my relationship with WorkNet Pinellas and have been instrumental in keeping us informed with new educational trends.
We've really seen our employees grow in their own personal development. It has not only exceeded Power Design's expectations, but our employees' expectations as well.
To learn more about our no-cost programs and services, visit workforcetampa.com or worknetpinellas.org.